Hello team, let's go through this question so that we can be able to understand much better. As you can see, we have been going through some questions here. This is question 3. So we did question 2 the other time. I think you remember. Please go and practice and make sure that when the assessments come, you are able to answer as required by the question. Like I said before, guys, make sure that you read instructions because sometimes we become unsuccessful due to the fact that we don't pay attention to the instructions. So again, I thought maybe if we can put everything together, like for example, if you remember before we learned on the markups separate from the vet. So now what if everything is combined? Can we be able to answer this question? So let's go through this question and see how far can we go. Okay. So you can see here they say complete the table below by filling in the missing blocks and state which of the vet categories the below falls under. Where vet does not apply, calculate selling price and cost price as if there is no vet. Okay, round to 2 decimals. Hint, first determine the applicable vet category as this will impact on the other calculation. Even though they did not specify that you need to decide on the last column, you need to start because this will give an idea of how are you going to approach your calculations. Let's start with the first one. As you can see here, we've got brown bread. Brown bread. So let's start with C here. So brown bread, you know that it is always classified as 0 rated. So please, you must go and learn those things. So brown bread will always be classified as 0 rated. So you need to make sure that you know how to classify. So it is always 0 rated item, as you can see I wrote here. But when we check the fact that this is 0 rated, it means I'm not going to calculate VAT at all because 0 rated, it means I must calculate VAT at 0%. Can you see now? So it means this amount is not inclusive of VAT. Are we together? So now we know what to do. So we can go and calculate the A part. Now, when it comes to A, they need us to calculate the cost price. And remember, we need to use this markup for us to be able to calculate the cost price. From our previous experiences and calculation, I think you may recall that we always have a standard formula that we need to use at all times. Okay, so if you remember very well, our standard formula, we always said, I'm going to analyze here at the bottom, we always said we have got the cost price. Remember that? And then obviously, what must we do? We add. Remember, there are different ways of doing it, but I prefer if we do it like this, especially as a beginner. Okay, and then we will have to add the markup. Can you see now? And then after the markup, we need to make sure that we get what? The selling price. Okay, this is what we have been doing all along. So you need to make sure that you know this formula. Remember, so what you can do, for example, you can just say, for example, here the formula says this is like cost price plus. Let me just do it like this. Markup, you always get what? The selling price. So make sure that you do that at all times. So now, remember, you need to use this markup in order for you to calculate the cost price. Can you see now? So meaning because the markup is 20%, and they say the 20% on cost. So firstly, you can just go and put the markup because the markup is given. Can you see now? The markup is given as 20%. So I'm just going to write 20 like that. Can you see now? And then now, because the markup is on cost, remember, on cost. The minute you see on cost, it means your cost price must be 100. Can you see? I think you know by now that's how we do these things. So we're going to put 100 here because they said the markup is on cost. Remember, in future, they will say the markup is on selling price. What must you do? It means this 100 will be in line with the selling price. Okay, so this one is very much important. So make sure that you know how to do that. So immediately after you're doing that, so you're going to use the formula here, cost plus the markup equals selling price. So 100 plus 20 equals 120. Okay, this is very much important. This is going to help us to calculate. Now, after doing that, remember we're calculating A. When we calculate A, we need to check. What is the column here? The column says cost price. Okay, so it means we're calculating cost price. So I'm going to go in line with the cost price like we've done before. Okay, I'm going to put a question mark here. Okay, I put question mark there because my intention is to calculate cost price. So I'm asking myself, what am I trying to calculate? So if I was calculating this column, I was supposed to put question mark in line with this. If I was calculating the markup as a profit, I was supposed to put question mark. Can you see now? Wherever, if I want to calculate something, is where I must put question mark. Obviously, for me to calculate something, I need to know at least one of these amounts. So which amount do I know? At the moment, I know 150. So meaning I'm going to use 150. What is 150? 150 in selling price. So again, I'm going to come and put 150 in line with the selling price. Okay, so this is very much important. And remember, the selling price that I must use must always be excluding VAT. Someone can say, why do we use 150? Because 150 is inclusive of VAT. Remember, as long as it's zero rated, it means 150 does not have VAT. Now, that's why this statement they say, first determine the VAT category as it will impact our calculations. Can you see now? They even said where VAT does not apply, calculate selling price as if there is no VAT. In other words, there is no VAT. Can you see now? So now, after doing that, we can have our calculation. How can we calculate? Like we have said before, calculation will look like this. Because the question mark is here in line with the cost price. So I'm going to put 100 on top. Remember, that's what we've been doing all along. Okay? Because the amount is in line with selling price, we're going to divide by 120. Can you see how easy is that? Very, very easy. Just make sure that you do that. And thereafter, what must you do? You just have to multiply by what? We multiply by the amount. So the amount here is going to be how much? It's going to be 150. Can you see now? I said 100 over 120 times 150. So how much do we get? Let's see how much do we get. We get 125. So this 125 is our, I'm going to come and put it here as A. I hope it makes sense. Can you see? Just easy like that. So make sure that you always analyze at all times. So our cost price is what? Is 125. Okay. Now we need to calculate what we call the gross margin. Remember, I said the gross margin like any other questions that we dealt with. So when you see the gross margin, it's the same as when you analyze the markup. So the markup on selling price. So when they say the markup is on selling price, it's the same thing here. So don't be confused by this gross margin. It means the markup is on selling price. So again, before you can calculate this B, you need to be able to know the formula. What was the formula? Remember we learned about this formula before. The formula for gross margin. Remember, the gross margin equals, I'm going to put it down here. The gross margin, I'm going to put it down here. The gross margin here equals, as you can see, markup profit divided by the selling price. And obviously, the answer I will have to multiply by 100. Can you see now? So what I'm going to do here, the answer, let me just say, multiply this by what? By 100 to make it a percentage. Can you see now? You must know this formula. So what I need to do, I just have to check what I analyzed here. Can you see? You must first analyze the markup like this. So this is how you analyze the markup. From this is where that is going, we are going to calculate what? The gross margin. So by following this formula, our gross margin is going to be, you know, markup. What is the markup here? Is 20 there. So I'm going to put 20. I'm not going to use percentage. I'm just going to put it as 20 divided by what? By the selling price. What is the selling price? It's 120. And I multiply it by what? By 100. Can we? How easy is that? So I can also just put it here so that you cannot be confused. It's this formula. 120 is 20 divided by 120 because I said markup over selling price. Markup over selling price. Can you see if you analyze this, answers will always come from this one. And then if you multiply, let's use the calculator and check. If you multiply, your answer will be 16.67%. Can you see now? Because they said 2 decimals, I'm going to put it here as 16.67. Can you see now? Easy like that. It's not difficult at all. Can you see now? So practice makes perfect. So make sure that you always do that. So you are done with what? B. Now we can go to row number 2. So as you can see here, we've got D, but remember they advised us to always start with what? With the vet supply, because that will make sure that it gives us what? It gives us how to calculate this particular amount. So if you can check the stables for sale, the stables are standard rated. So you just have to come here and write standard rated. Okay, they are standard. In other words, they are vettable items. So we write standard rated. So it means now we know that we need to be careful when it comes to VAT. It means the selling price here, they say including VAT. So whatever I put here must include VAT. Can you see now? But we must first, we can just go and first find D. D is our markup on cost. Can you see now? But before we can do that, we need to make sure that we analyze what we have. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of this information so that you can be able to understand what's going on. Okay, so let's just get rid of this information and start all over again. Remember, the formula will never change. It will always be like that. But you need to check for you to find markup here, which is D. It means I can use what? Gross margin. Remember, for me to find the markup on cost, for me to find the gross margin before I choose the markup on cost. But for me to find the markup, it means I must use the gross margin. Again, I need to analyze this 30 first, because if I cannot analyze it, I'm not going to be able to calculate. But how will I analyze? I said when you see the gross margin, this means it is the markup on selling price. So when I analyze the gross margin, I must just say, okay, it is the same as the markup is on what? On selling price. And I told you that the markup on selling price, when you say on selling price, remember here we said on cost. So meaning the 100 was on cost. Because now we say on selling price, it means we must go and put 100 in line with what? With the selling price. Can you see? You need to be careful. And this gross margin here, we're just going to analyze it like markup. We can just come and put it here, and put it here as how much? As 30%. Can you see now? So this 100 is controlled by this on. If it was on cost, the 100 was supposed to be in line with the cost price. But now because it's on selling price, the 100 must be in line with the selling price. And now we need to be careful. We need to satisfy the formula. Cost price plus markup equals selling price. So you need to be careful. It means in this 100, there is markup and cost price. So whatever I put here, when I add to the 30, I must get 100. So in simple terms, if you have got something like this, just minus from the bottom and go up. Unlike the initial one, we had to add from the top. So from the top we add, from the bottom we less. 100 minus 30, how much do we get? We get 70. Can you see how do we get that? So it is important for you to get this thing right. And thereafter, we can come and calculate the markup on cost. But again, we need to understand the formula that we use to calculate the markup on cost. Okay, I'm just going to give it to you. The markup formula will always be like this. The markup will be, listen now, the markup, you just take the profit and you divide by what? By the cost price. That profit can be gross profit, it doesn't matter. You can just call it gross profit because this one represents the gross profit part of it. So, but I just prefer to call it profit so that you cannot be questioning this and say, okay, I don't understand. Can you see now? So now, if we check there, we need the profit. So the profit that I'm talking about will be the difference between the cost price and the selling price. Can you see now? So it means I'm looking for this profit of 30% in a way. Can you see now? So in terms of the amount of the rands, the profit will be cost price, and then you less it from what? From the selling price. But by looking at this, you can easily check this. When it comes to this analysis here, what is the profit? What percentage represent profit? It is 30. What do? You just say equals 30 divided by, I said 30 because this is the profit that I'm talking about. It doesn't matter. Even if you were using rands, it doesn't matter. Same procedure. This is the percentages. So now we divide by the cost price. What is the cost price there on top? Is 70, and we just divide by 70. Don't forget to multiply it by 100. And how much do we get? Let's use the calculator. On my calculator, I get 42.86. That's my answer. So it means the markup will be, I'll come and put it here, will be 48.86. You see now? So the importance of knowing these formulas. But you must first analyze what you have. You must analyze, because I'm using this one, I analyze this one. If I was using this one to calculate that one, I was supposed to first analyze this one. But be careful how to analyze. Can you see now? And then now it means I can be able to find what? E. Remember, E is the selling price. It means I need to make sure that I calculate the selling price. But when I calculate the selling price, I need to be careful. I'm going to use this markup for me to be able to calculate this selling price. Can you see now? This is a very complicated exercise. So it means I need to come here and calculate that selling price. So I'm going to copy this information here because I need this. Let me just copy this and put it somewhere here so that I can show you how to analyze that. Just going to analyze here. I'm going to show you. Let me get rid of this. Get rid of this. Let me get rid of this. Okay, so when you check here, for me to find, remember we need to use this column. For me to find the selling price, it means I must use this markup. So how can I do that? I must first analyze this markup. So if I analyze that markup, I must just come here and write 42 because the markup is 42.86. Now, I'm analyzing this markup because for me to find these two columns, remember I must use this markup. Now, but this is 42.86, but and markup is on cost. meaning I must put 100 in line with the cost. Can you see now? So when I use the formula, the answer here is going to be 142.86. I think you understand why do you have to do that. Can you see now? Let me get rid of this. So this is how I analyzed this markup. But now, what am I trying to calculate? I'm trying to calculate E, and E is selling price. So I must just go in line with the selling price, and I just put question mark because I'm looking for it. I put question mark here because I'm looking for E, and E is the selling price. But which amount do I have? I'm having how much? 13,700 as my cost price. So I'm going to put cost price here. 18,700. Can you see now? So it means I'm looking for this one. I know this one. So now I can come up with my calculation. How will my calculation look like? My calculation will look like, okay, where I put question mark, I put on top. So I'm going to say 142.86 divide by, check here. Because I put question mark here, I say 142.86 divide by, because I'm looking for it. So wherever I put the amount, I divide with, meaning I'm going to divide by 100. And it's then that I multiply. Remember, we always multiply with the amount. Can you see now? So make sure that you know how to do that. This is very easy if you are careful. Okay, so when I do that, I find something like on my calculator 19,571.82. Can you see now? So this is the amount that I found. I found the selling price. But remember, I used this cost price of 13.7. So, but this cost price is excluding VAT, but the column says here including VAT. So, meaning the answer that I just got here, let me put it in brackets, is excluding VAT. Is excluding VAT. So now I need to make sure that I include VAT because the amount that I must put here, as you can see here, must include VAT. So I must go and include VAT. So when I go and include VAT, I'm gonna make sure that I use VAT analysis. I think you still remember how to analyze VAT. So now I'm gonna show you once again so that we always remind each other here because it is important for us to remember how to analyze VAT. Okay, at all times, make sure that you know how to analyze VAT. Remember, when we analyze VAT, it doesn't change. I think if I can show you now, if I analyze VAT, so VAT is always like I'm going to show you shortly. VAT is always analyzed like this. I think you remember this. Remember, this is how we analyzed VAT before. This is how we analyzed VAT. This is how we analyzed VAT. Okay, so we need to be careful. So, meaning we need to use these to analyze this VAT. So what am I trying to calculate? I'm trying to calculate the amount inclusive of VAT. Remember, I must put question mark in line with price including VAT because I'm calculating price excluding VAT. So this 19,571 is excluding VAT, meaning I'm going to put it in line with the amount excluding VAT. Can you see now? Like I said, any technique is allowed, but for my students, I use this one so that we can be able to understand better. Can you see now? Because I know my student better and they know me better. Okay? So this is how we are going to calculate VAT. Therefore, how are we going to calculate? Remember, wherever you put question mark, the fraction must always be on top. So when I calculate, I'm going to say 115 divided by. Wherever I put the amount, that must be at the bottom. I divide by 100. And I always times it by the amount that I know. Can you see now? This is very much important. Always make sure that you multiply by the amount that you know. Okay, and then how much we get? Let's use our calculator and see how much we got. And according to my calculator, let's see, I get 22,507. So I'm going to come here and put 22,507. This means this is including VAT. So you just have to be careful here. So this is including VAT. So that is the answer that I can put there. I can go and put it here for E because now the amount is inclusive of VAT. I hope that it makes sense. Can you see now? So far, so good. So I'm going to cut this video so that it cannot be long. So I'm going to do the next part shortly. Okay. So for now, let's pause for now. Let's go and drink some water. And thereafter, when we come back, we continue like nobody's business. Okay. For now, I'm going to stop this video and stop recording the video.